So thank you for joining today's webinar. So this morning we'll be going through Grandstream GDMS and also a live demo of the platform. I'll start off with this slide. So the Grandstream mission, probably a little bit more appropriate than ever, given the current environments. So at Grandstream, we believe in connecting the world. We believe every business, large or small, should have the tools to communicate from anywhere on any device. And we design products that make this belief become a reality. Pretty important and pretty powerful mission statement given the current environment with everyone facing various levels of lockdowns and working from home. So what is GDMS, or Grandstream Device Management System? So GDMS provides a centralized interface for enterprises, channel partners, or even just multi-site businesses to be able to provision, monitor, manage large-scale deployments of Grandstream devices. So when I talk devices, I'm talking devices like phones and extensions like that. So to give you a very specific platform overview, so it is a public cloud service. So it requires very little setup. It's basically a matter of setting up an account, and then you're ready to provision devices to it. Obviously, it makes it accessible from anywhere that you have access to the internet. It's distributed across servers in multiple regions, multiple locations. It's there for unified deployment and management. So it allows you to manage all devices, be they located in different sites on the same site. You can then split it down by model, site, or even custom groups. So you may want to set up specific parameters for people that perform specific tasks. You can have all their devices set up the same way. We can do diagnostics. So we have a one-click debug feature, which allows us to easily and remotely capture system logs, network captures, and also trace routes. We can do the configuration and provisioning. So we have a one-stop location to be able to configure and provision all our endpoints. So we can do it as batch configuring. We can do it specific to SIP accounts or specific device parameters. But what it's allowing us to do is actually even be able to configure the device before it hits site. So if we look at it from an integrator's point of view or a service provider's point of view, it allows you to configure the device and then have the device drop shipped direct to the end customer. So you're not even necessarily having to see the device to be able to have that device configured, and then once it hits out on site, you can manage it. You'll even be able to see once the customer's received it, plugged it in, because the device will come up online. We can do real-time monitoring and alerts, so we can monitor account registration status, so on SIP accounts. We can monitor the call status, call quality, and we can receive alert notifications, say via email, upon detecting an abnormal device status. So we can set it for various different parameters, and then we can get alerts coming through to us when a device has triggered one of those alert parameters, so that even before your customer is necessarily getting in contact with you or before the site gets in contact with you, you've already got a heads up that something's not right. And then obviously we have APIs and local deployment options. So the ability for people to be able to provision it on their own servers if they wish, rather than in a public cloud, or APIs to allow interfaces with it. So the current devices supported by GDMS is our GXP 2100 series, the GRP 2600 series, our GXV series of Android phones, the GVC 3210 video conferencing end device, WP820 Wi-Fi cordless phone, our DECT series of phones, and then also our HT series of analog ATAs. Other devices that will be added into it is the WP810, the GAC series of audio conference phones, our Gateway series, so that will include our GXW 4200 series and also the 4500 series. And then our UCM series of PBXs will also be included into that. So that will be an update, and that will be coming further down the track. Obviously, we'll make announcements once those other models are supported. So if we look into the device management side, which is probably one of the main things that people are going to want to look at. So we can set them up by site or groups. So we can divide the devices into multiple groups and sites, and then we can utilize the templates that we create around that to manage those devices. So this is about simplifying management and deployment to devices. We can manage the firmware on the devices. So in GDMS by device, there's an official firmware list. And we have the ability to also upload any custom version of firmware. If there is anything that specifically has been required by a service provider, that there may be a custom version of firmware for. And then based on that firmware list, you have the ability to remotely upgrade the firmware to those devices. We can also schedule tasks in the platform. So we can schedule tasks to happen immediately. We can do it right now. We can schedule it. So let's say you're doing a firmware update. You might want to do a firmware update at 2 o'clock in the morning while everyone's at home. Everyone's at home, in bed. You've got free reign across the network, or even on a weekend, if they're not working on the weekend. And you can have all of that go through. So you might want to do your firmware updates then. Or you can have circular, so you can do it one device after the other, instead of necessarily trying to push it out to all the devices at once. So the tasks that we can do is account configuration, parameter configuration, we do firmware upgrades, and there's a number of other applications that we can provide and schedule at specific times of when it may suit both us as the provider or the integrator, and when it may suit the customer. And then obviously we have multi-privilege management. So we can allocate permissions to people based on their role and have separate management by using sub-organizations. So what it means is we can then allow people to only be able to see and manage devices specific to their job role or specific to their company if we're up at the service provider level. So we're not necessarily going to give access to everyone to have access to all the sites, but then as a super administrator, which is what we would be as the key account holder, we can then have visibility of all our customer sites. So I guess that's the important thing to mention here, is if we are a service provider or we're an integrator, we can have all our customer sites or even all our separate customers listed as separate accounts under the one overarching GDMS account. And then as we log in, we'll have full visibility across all of our customers and all of our customer sites. So you can do things like real-time monitoring and analysis. So very simple things like device analysis, whether the device is online or offline, what device model it is. We can drive right down to that level. We can have a look at the distribution of the devices based on site, model, or firmware. As we see in the bottom of this picture on the left-hand side, the bottom one, the global one, we can start to see where we've got devices spread geographically, if they're spread over a large geographic area. We can look at device working status. So is the VoIP account registration status up and running? Are they on D&D? What's the call status like? What's the call quality like? We can start to see all these things straight away and be able to do a lot of troubleshooting and a lot of management for that customer on a remote basis rather than having to necessarily go to site. And then, as I've already said, we can display the area of device distribution based on a map view. For failure alerts, we can have abnormalities such as account registration failure, low call quality. We can have notifications sent to us via email so that we know what's going on. We can start to be proactive. Diagnostic tools, I've touched on this briefly before, but things like network troubleshooting. We can remotely perform pings. We can do trace routes, syslogs, packet capture. We can do call quality troubleshooting, which is a pending feature, and then also some system troubleshooting. So what this is allowing us to do is if there is an issue at a customer site or if it's within your own organization at one of your own sites, you can start to do analysis and diagnostics and some rectification works without necessarily having to make that trip to site. And then we can also have the system to automatically generate a report based on the analysis of the failure. So having a lot of powerful tools in here that we can start to use to not only provision the devices, but the real key thing here is to manage those devices once they're out in the field. And anyone that's running as a service provider, or if you're an integrator that is providing a service to your customers to manage those devices for them, this will actually help to increase your bottom line profit because you're not necessarily having to go to site all the time. As we all know, the minute someone goes to site, there goes the profit margin. And the reports are stored in GDMS Cloud and can be viewed at any time. So not only do we see the information right now, we can actually pull out historic reports so that we can start to see exactly what's been going on. If we've got an ongoing issue, we can start to pull the historical reports to be able to see and start to determine what is causing those issues. So we can do batch configuration by device SIP accounts. So we can quickly import SIP accounts from a device, such as a UCM. We can batch configure devices using Excel files. So we can have one SIP account allocated to multiple devices or allocate multiple accounts to a single device. We can do all of these remotely through GDMS. We can allow users to allocate the devices in real time. So if the device is offline, it will automatically allocate once the device gets turned on. So we can actually set this device, have it allocated to the user, we can have it allocated to the accounts, we can have all of those parameters set. As soon as that device is turned on, it's going to come out, it's going to drag down that configuration, and then it's going to boot and it's going to be ready to go. And we can also monitor the devices by displaying an account registration status. So we're starting to have all of this information at our hands, at our fingertips, and be able to manage our customers or our own sites a lot more proactively. And then we can also do the configuration by group or model. So we might want to set different types of group templates. So we may have for guests, for office workers, for management, for sales and marketing. They'll have different requirements based on their job role. So we can actually set that up as a group template, and we can then provision devices based around those templates. And some of the examples that we may want to do is, what are the network settings that we want to put in there depending on their group? What video settings are we going to want to put in there depending on the group? Contacts. Do we want to allow them access to the phone book? Do we not? Do we want different levels of phone book access based on different people's job roles or different groups? And then we have also the configuration settings are available for each of the supported device models. So we have a web GUI editor, we have a text editor, but basically what it is the GUI. We have the usual interface that people are used to using. So we're doing that just through a web interface. And text editor, we can go back into a text type editing format if we wish, if that's the way that we prefer to actually configure devices. Some of the deployment scenarios. So for an installer or integrator, this particular platform will allow people to configure, manage, and support deployments for their customers based purely on access to a cloud platform. So as I said earlier, you can organize all your clients by sites. So you can have all of your customers sitting under one overarching account, and then each of your clients is a site. You can pre-configure your customers' deployments and devices prior to them being sent out. So essentially, it creates a turnkey solution for you to utilize and for you to be able to manage and provision to your customer base. So you're able to have that functionality to provision and manage remotely to your customer. As we've said before, the configuration templates can be pushed out in mass across sites or across specific devices, and we can set at what level we want those templates to be made. And one of the big things that I mentioned before, the big side here is that we can start to solve customer issues without having to go to site. The minute you go to site, it's costing you money out of the profit that you're making from that customer. ITSPs and service providers. So some of the similar functionality here. So devices can be organized by plans or utilizing sites so that we can set all of this up. We can manage all of our customers remotely. We can have pre-configured templates, which can be pushed out depending on the plan. So if you're running a specific plan type for customers, you may have some different options that they can choose from, which are your standard offerings across your market offering. You can have the templates built around that. As soon as the customer says, yes, I want plan B, you can provision that device using the template for plan B. Templates can also be pushed out depending on the device, or if you have specific parameters that you may set for your customers, depending on which device they have or which device they've purchased, you can then push out those configuration templates based around the device that the customer has. And then once again, we go back into the automated alerts. We can start to be more proactive around our customers so that we can be working in the background if there's an issue, sometimes even before the customer knows that there's been an issue. And obviously that is key for customer service. If you're providing a service to a customer, they want the uptime. This is allowing you to manage and be proactive around that uptime. For larger enterprises, so it allows larger businesses to easily scale their solution within their organization or within their enterprise. So they can scale up and they can add devices as they're required. The IT team can troubleshoot and manage devices from anywhere. So if we look specifically to New Zealand, we may have the IT team might sit on the North Island. We might have devices down on the South Island. So we might have the IT team sitting in either Auckland or Wellington, and we might have some of the remote devices sitting down in Christchurch, or it might be the other way. This is allowing us to be able to troubleshoot and manage those devices remotely instead of necessarily having to jump on a plane to go and try and solve the issue. So the network can be managed from either headquarters or remotely, especially at the moment. We've got everyone that's having to, or a lot of people that are having to work from home that they normally wouldn't. Platforms like this allow the IT team to be able to still manage and look after and troubleshoot those devices, or even provision those devices as if they were sitting in the office under normal working circumstances without a lockdown being in place. And then obviously we can set up templates to manage telephony features, depending on either the department or use or the group that we want to set those people up in. Channel partners. So basically what happens is if you have, you're a business and you have, let's say, resellers sitting under you, you can actually have your resellers set up a separate sub-account. So you can assign devices to sub-channel customers, and then they are able to log into GDMS to only manage the devices that relate to their customer. So they're not going to see everything, only what relates to their customer base. So again, they have the ability to manage devices directly for their customers. And as we say here, so Grandstream support will be able to help people to set that up if someone's wanting to set it up to that level. So that gives a bit of an overview from my perspective. Now, one of the reasons that I have Hugh on this morning is Hugh's actually going to take us through a live demonstration of the platform. One thing I will mention that I didn't mention right at the start of the presentation, GDMS is a cloud-based platform. It is a free service to use. It is simply a matter of going and signing up at gdms.cloud. And once you've set up your account, you will then be able to start to provision and manage devices through that account. But as I say, one of the big key selling points here, or one of the key value adds, is that it is a free platform. So based around that, you're able to get all of this functionality. You're able to increase the profitability for your business, but at no cost. So based on that, I will stop sharing my screen and I'll let Hugh come in and start sharing his so that we can do a live demo of the GDMS platform.
Thanks, Ben. And actually, just a quick correction. The GDMS is free at no cost, up to 1 million devices. If you want to do more than 1 million, there will be a cost involved. But if that's something that you have, please feel free to contact us directly, and we'll. I think
you'd almost fly anywhere in the world, wouldn't you, Hugh, to be able to set that up for someone?
If I had to, I would definitely.
I think 1 million devices is pretty generous.
For sure. Yeah. Right now, again, the service is free. We will have some major updates in the future that add some some really unique points that make it more attractive than the competitors. And so we'll keep you updated for that. And to sign up, like Ben said, it's very simple. Just go to gdms.cloud and sign up there. What we'll do today, just because of the time, we'll just give you a brief rundown of the system, what it looks like, show you how easy it is to start managing devices. Now, there's a lot more functionality involved with GDMS other than what we'll cover today, but I'll point you to some of the resources that you can utilize for that. Number one is the advanced API integration. If you are interested in that, once you sign up for an account and you go down to System and API Developer, there's a link here that sends you over to our wiki page that gives you all of the details you need to integrate your systems with our APIs. Gives you examples on how to get connected and all of the different interfaces that you have access to. Another great resource is our website, which is grandstream.com. We have all of the guides listed here for GDMS, as well as user manuals and data sheets. And lastly, the Go Wi-Fi blog and knowledge base is also a great resource that you can utilize. I know they update it quite a bit, and Daniel over at Go Wi-Fi has been very active with GDMS. So, in fact, he probably knows how to use it better than me. So, he should have been doing this demo. Anyways, with GDMS, once you sign in, you saw on some of the slides the dashboard. The dashboard is a very important part of the GDMS system because it gives you an overview of all of your device distributions, the status, what's up, what's down, and it gives you a big picture of what's going on your deployed networks. One thing that I do want to stress is that there are different ways to organize all of your sites or your organizations. Right? There's the organization tab, which allows you to create organizations within your organization. So, for example, if you're a managed service provider or a system integrator that also manages the networks for all of your customers, you can technically create each one of these customers as a separate organization within your master organization. And then you can create separate users, have them, give them permissions based on their requirements, such as the ability to only view their particular devices and their particular organization. The other way to do it is to use the organizations along with the different sites. For example, here I have the sites in our Los Angeles office. This is just the default organization, but within this organization, I have multiple sub-sites within that organization. As you see here, within the Los Angeles office, we have the APAC team. And under the APAC team, we have the marketing, the sales, and my lab. Then we have, in parallel with the APAC team, is the IoT team, the warehouse staff, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very flexible on how you organize everything, but the main point is that you're able to have the big snapshot of all your deployed systems, whichever way you choose to deploy it. Now, creating accounts and getting devices provisioned, as Ben said, it's very easy. The main goal is so that you never have to manually configure any of the Grandstream devices when you deploy it. The process flow that we had in mind is that you configure everything on GDMS, ship out the devices out to your partners, they plug it in, your partners or the users, they plug it in. As soon as the device gets internet connectivity, it contacts GDMS and everything is pushed down and it's fully configured, ready to go. And so I'll give you a brief rundown of how that might look. For example, let's go back to the main dashboard. Right, I have a customer that buys 10 phones, for example. The first thing I would do is I would go under the organization and create a site for this, an organization for this particular customer under their name. Then I would go to a VoIP account, because most of the time that's what they're here to configure, is the SIP services on their devices. You create a SIP server. I have two already. One is a UCM, and actually they're both UCMs. This is actually a live account, by the way. So you create your SIP server, which is basically the general information. In this case, it's a UCM. I just have the IP address and any particular settings that are unique to this device. You can add additional settings that are not listed there by selecting the additional settings option and adding all those that you require. Once you create the SIP server, you can start to create accounts and assign them to that SIP server. So for example, I have a test account here that I've created, and I've assigned that to a UCM in this case. Now, it doesn't have to be a UCM. It can be any type of SIP server out there. Just for this example, it's a UCM because I have free access to UCMs. And you add all your accounts there. After you have all of those accounts, you'll want to get these accounts assigned to the devices that you actually have. And if you go to the device tab, you can manually add devices. You can import a device using an Excel spreadsheet, or you can also sync devices with our ERP systems or through the channel management system that we have set up, which we won't necessarily cover in this particular session, but we can definitely add that. We can definitely have another session that can cover all of those details. One thing I forgot to mention actually is Grandstream, we're currently in the process of revamping our Grandstream Academy training. We'll be adding a GDMS element to our professional series. So keep an eye out for that. That'll cover a lot of the details on how to configure some of the advanced functionality of the system. All right, so on to devices. To add a device manually, it's very simple. Give it a name, enter the MAC address, and the serial number. Now, if you don't have the device physically in your hands, let's say you have it in the warehouse, for example, what we can do is, we can email you a list of all the MAC addresses and serial numbers based on your particular order. Just let Go Wi-Fi or us know, and we'll definitely get that provided for you so that you can import it. But to manually do it, you just enter it there and assign it a particular site. Once you add that device, you can then edit all of the options that are related to that device. Now, when you select the model, for example, I have a WP820 here, you can assign accounts to the different lines that are available for that model. Not only that, but you can also configure every single option that you would see on the web interface of that model. So you see here on my screen, every single option that would have been on the web interface is available here. For those that are more advanced or more experienced in using Grandstream devices, we do have a text editor configuration for those that prefer that method as well. And from here, you just enter all of the p-values and the corresponding values from there. Okay. And from the devices, after you configure them, assign them accounts, and you plug them in and they reach GDMS and they get registered, you'll be able to see the status here, if it's registered or not. And from there, if you wanted to perform diagnostics, like Ben mentioned, you can do that directly through the GDMS interface, as opposed to traveling to the customer site to do the diagnostics or walking the customer through the whole process of of how to enable syslog and how to capture traces, for example. I know that can be a little bit cumbersome at times. But the great thing about GDMS is that it allows you to do all of that remotely without ever having to contact the customer or being on site. And as of now, we have a number of diagnostics tools available. For example, I'll just give you one example of a device that I have online now. And just for those that are asking the question, right now we're entering MAC addresses, but in the future we're updating this so that it can be a pull-down list so that you can select a device that you have that's already added to your account, just to make it easier. But you enter the MAC address and it pulls up information about that device. Oh, here's my public IP. Please don't DDoS me, guys. From here, you can perform several different functions. From the networking side, you can do pings and trace routes directly. From here, you can also obtain syslogs as well. And most importantly, my favorite thing is capturing traces. You can initiate a trace directly through the GDMS interface. And from there, you'll be able to see what's going on. And also, you can send those traces over to the Grandstream support team, and we'll help you take a look at what's going on. Okay. Another valuable tool that a lot of people overlook is firmware control. When I'm deploying a site with a number of devices, I want to make sure they all operate as expected. And one of the ways to do that is to make sure that they're on the same firmware. And with GDMS, you can actually control which firmware all of these devices are on. A lot of times, there are special features or specialized issues that come up where the support team will send you guys a customized firmware, for example. You can actually use the GDMS to deploy the customized firmware to all of the devices. Makes it a lot easier. It also removes the burden of you having to host your own firmware server. Take the burden of bandwidth off your backs and puts it on the GDMS cloud. And so from there, you'll be able to manage every single version for every single device that you have. Another bit of like the tips and tricks of the trade. I often like to look at this site and look at the official firmware because sometimes our developers are eager and they upload firmware for devices that we haven't released yet. So for those that want to know what's going on and get a sneak peek into what's coming up, this is a good place to look. Okay. And lastly, what we'll cover today are some of the alerts. After you set up all of your email notifications, you can set up different types of alerts that you get. For example, when a device is offline, when it's rebooted, you get all different types of alerts. And I think this is a very important tool so that you know when there's an issue before the customer does. It's great to be able to fix issues before they become a big deal with customers that are deployed. And all it takes is just setting up an email notification and selecting the type of alert that you want to hear. This is also great for making sure that sites are not under attack by hackers, for example. So cool. And so I know this is a very, very quick rundown of the GDMS interface, but we'll, I do foresee some technical webinars coming up in the near future that will cover more details on how to use GDMS in a real environment and cover all of the different options that are available. And again, if you guys haven't done so already, visit the Go Wi-Fi blog as well as the Grandstream resources page for additional information. feel free to ask questions on the side. We'll stick around and answer questions.
Thanks for that, Hugh. I think it's given everyone a pretty good overview of it. And then, as you said, we can certainly delve down into more of a technical related one, and that will obviously run over a longer time frame. But we can certainly look at running that if people wish. So I think we'll hang online for another couple of minutes for any other questions that want to come through, and then after that we'll let everyone get on with their day.